Ladies and gentlemen, it is so wonderful to welcome you back to another episode of Pro Musicis Family of Artists. And today we are going to interview and spend some time with Diane Monroe. She was the 1983 Pro Musicis International Award winner in violin. And Diane has gone on to do many wonderful things with the instrument, not only in classical music, but also in jazz. Welcome, Diane, to Pro Musicis Family of Artists, of which you are an integral part.
Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate all that. Yes, thank you.
Could we just start off maybe telling us, where you're from, when you started the violin, at what influenced you, who are your teachers, and how and what brought you to Pro Musicis in the first place?
I started off as a musician. I started off improvising at the age of 3 at the piano. And I started classical lessons when I was 4 years old. But when I went to school, we did these, the regular old public school music tests and what all. I was asked
where was this, Diane? Where was this?
And this was in Philadelphia.
Okay, Philadelphia.
Born and raised in West Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I went to Harrington Elementary School, and that's where I first started playing the violin at the age of 8, I believe, in public schools. And so I did not have private lessons on the violin until I got into junior high school, actually. We had group lessons, as it were, and we played. We played Lightly Row and and all of that stuff, and it was very interesting. I had already, been acclimated to Western European repertoire from the piano point of view.
Were your parents musical?
My parents were all musical. I have a legacy, and that's the other thing that I feel like because of the musical world today that does not connect the dots, so to speak, culturally. I have a whole legacy that I kind of put aside for my academic training. I have a legacy of my grandfather was a virtuoso guitar player and played with his brothers. And they played for rent parties in Harlem in New York. Apparently he was really an amazing player. He passed when I was 2 years old. But I also have him on my maternal side. My maternal grandmother's nephew, my cousin, was Howard Carroll, another guitarist, an amazing guitar player of the famous Dixie Hummingbirds, the gospel group. And so this,
music was in your blood. It was there for you.
It was there for me, and the African tradition was there. The Western European tradition was there. It was just really, Howard would come over and he would play, and then he would sing. Everybody would sing. My mother played piano. My cousins played piano. My uncle
how beautiful.
taught me boogie woogie on the piano, and and so the violin came in, and it was also a string instrument. I picked up the guitar a little later on, actually. So it was a string instrument. Not knowing that I was going to, to really like it, I picked out this instrument in 3rd grade because there was nothing left except a clarinet and a violin. And I had asthma really badly as a child. And so I could not play the clarinet. So
No.
here I come. So I came home with a violin, and my mom went, "Oh my God, a violin! Oh my goodness, what are you doing?" And she thought that it was going to be so difficult and, like really scratchy and all of this kind of stuff. And it turned out that she's never missed a concert since.
Oh. And so, did the violin? Did you just kind of show a talent toward playing the violin when you picked it up? The talent was kind of obvious, or did you fall in love with the instrument, kind of thing?
Yeah, well, the talent was very obvious, and and I played once for my piano teacher, and he said, "You should play the violin." I had albums of Brahms and Rimsky-Korsakov, and Philadelphia Orchestra, of course, because that was
Philia.
my
Did you
town. That was my town.
did you go to the Academy of Music ever?
Oh, all the time. We heard the orchestra regularly, and it was wonderful. I mean, I
Oh, I
guess my
bet.
first, I guess my first, experience with the orchestra was because of school. School took
Right,
me to
school
public
concerts,
school.
sure, sure.
Oh yeah, and in fact, when we were in public schools, our training, the training was so wonderful in the string world in Philadelphia, in Philadelphia public schools, that every major artist from the orchestra would come into the schools and tutor us and or coach us, so as individuals. So we'd have, because we hadn't taken private lessons, they would come in and give us a session. So I would have a session with, David Madison, or somebody, and it was just so terrific. And that age is totally gone now, but
Sure, unfortunately.
but
But
it
but
was.
what you're saying is that the groundwork was really laid very well for you as a kid. The training and the programs that you went through really set the stage for you to make violin your life.
Yes, actually, because of the school system, I think, not the teachers necessarily. I think I had one teacher who was really extraordinary, Adrian Lamont, as he was my very first private teacher. But at Settlement Music School, and Settlement Music School was also that was a huge thing for me, and that's how I finished my private lessons before going to college, through that school. But I only took from Adrian Lamont for 1 year, unfortunately. But he.
So in these early years, as you're developing as an artist, as a violinist, are you not doing jazz at that time and just basically concentrating on the classical literature?
Well, what happened was very interesting. My parents at the time wanted me to get the academic training first, because they saw my promise in all the areas. Actually, by the time I was 12, I was playing piano in my high school jazz band, and I mean, once I got to high school, I played piano in the jazz band. I was playing guitar. I had a folk band. I was singing. I was songwriting, and I was playing the violin. And and they wanted me to continue in the academic world, and I was okay with that. I was really okay with that, except it was a little sad, because it meant that I had to, really focus, on one thing, this kind of thing. And so, because I'm a bit of a sponge, I really, I take everything to heart, and so I really concentrated on one thing, and I unfortunately left my other talents aside. I would play, for parties. Even when I got into Curtis Institute, I would play for the Christmas parties and stuff like that. But I never really, felt a part. And of course, you're not really encouraged to, do anything but the Western European literature. My first 2 years were at Oberlin Conservatory of Music. Yeah, I went there for 2 years, and then I met Charles Castleman, my
Sure.
dear teacher that who I studied with at Philadelphia Musical Academy at PMA
Right. Right.
for 2 years. I got my bachelor's from Philadelphia Musical Academy, and then I went to Michigan State for a year because I got awarded a stipend for being a grad assistant, and I studied with Walter Verder, who's also a wonderful teacher, and he was also the first violinist of the quartet I was in, which was the Beaumont String Quartet of Michigan State University. And so I thought that I was going to stay at Michigan State, and just kind of get, because I was already a teaching assistant. So I thought, my teacher would get me a gig, basically. And but in midstream that year, I went to the Cleveland Chamber Music seminar in Cleveland at CIM when I was at Cleveland Institute of Music for the seminar. Uh, uh, David Cerrone and Joseph Gingold pulled me aside, and I almost well up in tears when I tell the story, because they said, Gingold said to me, he says, "You are a star. You cannot be at Michigan State anymore. You have to go to Meadowmount, and you have to study with Galami, and you have to study with David Cerrone, and you want to go to Curtis Institute or Juilliard or something." And I was just freaked out.
Wow. Yeah.
I was totally freaked out. Yeah.
Uh,
And
sure.
of course, you can leave out of the story the fact that my main teacher at settlement school, this is between you and I, my main teacher at settlement school, when I was in Philadelphia, refused for me to audition for Curtis when I got to the age. So so I decided that I was going to go as far away as I knew how to go to, from him, because he wanted me to go to Temple to study with him. There were racial elements to this
But
story.
see, that's the yeah, yeah.
That's the other thing. It always, we all go through these
Well, I mean, being a
emotional
person of
things, but then
it
race
must have,
just
yeah, it must have been
just
so,
seals
but
the
it must have
deal.
been so difficult at that time.
Yeah, it was.
Being
I have to say,
a black classical violinist during that time must have been so difficult.
yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
Well,
however, there were so many players in West Philadelphia alone, and because before graduating from high school, there were dreams, there were wishes to be artists, to be string players and everything, but counselors were actually counseling us out of playing the violin because we would never make it. But I'm not doing sob stories here. I'm just
no.
saying that this is the truth, and it's actually I made a project so that I would purge myself of all of those things, and that I would perhaps hopefully help others teach.
Absolutely.
You
Oh
know what I'm
gosh.
saying? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
do. I do. I do.
Sure, sure, sure.
I feel. Now, I want to know,
Okay.
this, you're describing tremendous joy in your music making, but also at the same time, there was tremendous pain because of what was going on in our society that you were a victim of, that you had absolutely nothing to do with, that
Yeah.
was causing, but you survived, and it didn't obviously destroy your passion or your love of music, which brings me to the point of, how did you discover Pro Musicis?
Well, I was in New York. I had moved to New York. I was concertmaster of the ballet company here in Pennsylvania, and they were having financial trouble, and I was already commuting to New York back and forth. So I decided to move there because I was doing all these chamber orchestra gigs and everything, and I was really quite upset being in New York, because I just felt like I didn't fit in, and even though I was doing everything possible that yeah, that a privileged violinist could do. I just felt like everyone was cold. I couldn't get used to it. I was totally out, a fish out of water. I was just miserable. Okay. So um, and I knew that uh, I love to play. That's just what I did. It's just like I just loved music and I love to give and all of that kind of stuff. So I was just looking in all of these, I guess, I don't know, Musical America magazine or something. I don't know how I found Pro Musicis, but it just spoke to me. It just like, woo, it came off
You
the
mean
page.
its mission and what it stood for.
Its mission, what it stood for,
So this
and
so you said this is something that I want to try for.
that's exactly what I said. I did. I told myself this is something that feels really close to me and close to my heart. Not only not only the mission, but the combination of the mission and the fact that I know that I can connect to my voice, which is a sonata voice. Okay, I call
Absolutely.
it a sonata voice. So uh, so I just said, okay, maybe I'll apply. It's that I probably won't get in. But I'll apply. So I saw this, I applied, and I got into the they took the tape. I was like, oh my god! I got a call that I had made the finals. And it was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So I went back to New York and I played the finals. I played Chanson Poème, and that's what I had played for the ballet and, blah, blah. And I'm playing, and after I finished, Gunther, the Schiller was in the audience. He was one of the judges, of course. And he stood up and he said, why don't you play the opening again? And I was so I was so freaked out. I was so nervous anyway. And that I thought, oh my God, I did just such a horrible job. What's going to happen to me? And, it's like, I felt like I wanted to be invisible at that point. And so I played the opening again. He says, thank you. He says, I didn't think that you could play it the same way twice so beautifully.
Winning this prize, you got to know someone very special by the name of Father Eugène Merlet.
I certainly
And
did.
we always talk, and we have to talk about Father Merlet quite a bit. I mean, and you're quoted
Of course.
by saying, you say, Father Merlet's spirit will always be with me. This is from Diane Monroe. His generosity and kindness resonated with me. I feel grateful for his presence that truly blessed us all. And truer words had not been spoken. And didn't he just enrich our experience of being part of the family of Pro Musicis? Don't you feel that way?
Oh, so definitely. Most definitely he did. He was so special to us, to us all. And I have a special spot in my heart for him for many things. And one is uh, even that he was really instrumental in having me recognize, as I had said earlier, that I had to just kind of put my own culture aside for a while. Father was very, very, he was so sensitive. And what happened was that when I did my Renwick Gallery concert in '86 in DC, it was the first time I had played my unaccompanied version of Amazing Grace in a formal setting. I played it after my concert, after my recital, and or that was the last thing on the program. And
Now, but what I want to ask you though is the thing about this is fabulous, but what's so wonderful and that sets Pro Musicus apart from so many other organizations, not to mention, of course, Father Merlet and John Haig, the executive director, but is Father Merlet's vision of presenting us in major venues, but also putting us in these community service concerts that were
Yeah.
so special. And could you
Yeah.
maybe just reminisce or tell us some highlights of a couple of those concerts that you did under the auspices of Pro Musicis?
Oh, of course. Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, this is the well, the Renwick Gallery was the start of my incorporating, because of Father Merlet, was the start of my incorporating pieces that I truly loved, hymns and spirituals and things like that in venues and for people. And it was for a woman on her deathbed, seriously, that she had asked. John Haig had asked me to play Amazing Grace for her.
They
But
brought us to these places that are just as important as playing the major concerts like at Weill Recital Hall or Jordan Hall or wherever the case, wherever, or in Paris or Rome, wherever Pro Musicis brought us, is those community
yes,
service concerts were equally as important and just as special.
yeah,
And that's really what sets the organization apart. And then spending that spiritual, very spiritual, enriching time with Father Merlet, which
yes.
really enriched the soul and the spirit.
I just loved the rapport that I got from, from audiences in the prisons and in the
It's
nursing
amazing.
homes, playing in hard times, and like these, for instance. And so I tried to connect the playing to hard with in hard times to playing in places in places of need. The link I was trying to make was the fact that, when you feel something so deeply, and like the COVID instance, the racial unrest, pain of grief, and so forth. It brings out the best in you musically. So I equate that with playing, when we played for the first time in a prison, when playing, when Father Millet had me play the first time, in a nursing home or something. I equate that with this times, because it brings out the best of you. These people are in need, and they are alert to art, to love, to expression. And I think
Agreed.
that
So true.
that connection is just so important. I think
So
it's the
so
same connect.
so very profound, so very needed, so very human, so very
Very human.
emotional, very just
Yeah.
very human, a very important part of what I mean. It's life. It's an affirmation
Yeah.
of life.
Yes.
Even in death,
Well said.
even in death, music is an affirmation of life. I always like to ask our artists, can you cite or share with us a video, not by you necessarily, by an artist that inspires you, and introduce it for us?
Sure, I could. Yeah.
Think of off the top of your head.
And I always come back to is a uh, is David Oistrakh.
And that interpretation is just absolutely incredible. Now, let's switch gears, and will you share with us a performance that you have given?
I thought that that I could share because it was the last piece on the program that I did for Pro Musicis when at my American Hall debut, and
Oh.
and yeah, it was a Franck Sonata.
We're going to feature a little bit of the second movement and the fourth movement. So here is Marion Hahn and the wonderful Diane Monroe in 1986 at Merkin Hall in her recital for Pro Musicis playing the Franck Sonata. So now your life consists of two worlds. I mean, the world of the Western civilization, the Western music of Beethoven, Brahms, Bach, and of the masters, and also of jazz and improvisation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so
Yes.
so now with age and experience, you probably, I'm sure, find yourself comfortable in both worlds.
Well, yes, I think so. I, I'm always growing and I'm always learning.
Well,
And
that's life.
if,
I mean, if when you stop
yes,
growing and learning, you're not really breathing anymore.
and that's correct. That's very true. But I'm
So,
chuckling just because I had my feet in both worlds for a long time,
yes,
and then I kind of transferred, business wise over to the jazz world. I'm still learning. I don't have the years behind me in jazz that I have in classical music at all.
right,
I,
right.
I don't have that. I have certain gifts within that cultural genre, art form. Okay, well, this is a composition by John Burke's Dizzy Gillespie, and it's called A Night in Tunisia.
Diane, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your life and sharing your talent with the world and with Pro Musicis and being part of the Pro Musicis family. And as I say to all the
Thank you.
artists, as I say to all our artists, I know in my heart that Father Merlet is in heaven smiling down upon you, and as
Oh,
he's doing of all the Pro Musicis artists. And thank you so much for sharing your story and your talent.
oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Richard, for having me, and thank you for all your work and all your wonderful musicianship. I appreciate that
Thank you.
very
Bye bye.
much.